more information about who is attending the session. We'd really appreciate it. And just so happy to see everyone here this morning. All right, so hi, my name is Yolanda Payne, and I am a fellow with the Georgia Tech Constellation Center. I had the pleasure of meeting these lovely ladies last week, and you're in for a really great session. Our presenters today are Kelly Powers and Meg Ray. Kelly is a national CS advocate for computer science for all students. Working with Cornell Tech, she is a thinking coach in New York City schools where she works with teachers to help them develop their content knowledge, pedagogy, and confidence to bring both rigor and joyful computer education to urban schools. As a member of the AI Standards Committee, she is working with a team of experts to develop guidelines for teaching AI to students in grades K through 12. Say hi, Kelly.
Good morning.
We also have Meg Ray. Meg is a CS education consultant. She advises on CS coach development at Cornell Tech, where she was a founding teacher in residence and was responsible for coaching computer science programs for K-8 teachers. Meg teaches CS methods courses at NYU and special education courses at Hunter College. She's an experienced high school computer science teacher and curriculum developer. She is currently working with the Python Software Foundation on their education initiatives and is the author of the book, Code This Game. So without further ado, I present to you Meg and Kelly.
Thank you, Yolanda, for that great introduction. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our session. Our session is From Computational Thinking to Computer Science. I am Kelly, and my colleague is here on the call as well. I just want to give you a couple of fun facts about me. I started my interest in computer science in college. I had to take a required computer science class to graduate with my math degree. And I started my career at the IBM company in White Plains, New York. I just stumbled upon CS again in college. I moved into education 14 years later, right before year 2K. And for the past 20 years, I've taught CS in schools and have been an advocate for CS education in schools. I worked quite a while in Massachusetts as a CSTA founding chapter leader. And I was a member of the early CSTA advocacy leadership team created under Chris Stevenson when she was the director of CSTA. As you know, I'm currently working at Cornell Tech. I serve as a teacher in residence with our partner schools, and I continue to work with the same purpose, passion, and commitment to integrate CS into the daily school curriculum.
Hi, everyone. I'm Meg Ray, and as Kelly said, we are colleagues from Cornell Tech, where I also used to be a teacher in residence, and now I'm a K-12 advisor in that department, focusing on coaching and coach development. I got into computer science education because I wanted to be an aerospace engineer when I was in college, but I ended up failing out of my math classes because I had undiagnosed ADHD and learning disability. So now I study teaching computer science to students in special education because I don't want any of my students to miss out on a career in computer science or any STEM career because they didn't get the support that they need. So that's part of my mission and what I do in all of my work.
So our goal as TIRs working for Cornell Tech is to make computer science teachable. We're working to inform the larger community as we transform how CS is taught in K-12 schools. And we invite everyone here who's attending today to join us in our purpose, in our mission to prepare all of our children to actively participate, navigate, and create in today's digital world. We believe that all students should have access to computer science content, skills, and strategies for them to actively participate, create in the digital world.
So one of our mottos at Cornell Tech is rigor and joy. And we incorporate that into everything that we do, especially into our teacher in residence program, which is a coaching program to equip teachers to equitably teach computer science. And we believe that rigor and joy is at the core of equity. And it also aligns to the 3 different frameworks that we look at as coaches at Cornell Tech. So we try to coach through the lenses of universal design for learning, culturally responsive and sustaining pedagogy, and bilingual and translanguaging pedagogies. And all of those involve rigor and joy at their core. So before we jump in, we all use the term computational thinking a lot, and there's no real agreed upon definition. So Kelly and I wanted to talk to you about what we mean when we talk about computational thinking. So at Cornell Tech, we really believe that computational thinking and computer science go hand in hand. For us, computer science, we're looking at K-8. So when I say computer science, I'm using it as a really broad umbrella term to talk about any computing related disciplines that we teach in K-8. And when we talk about computational thinking, we talk about, we're meaning a thought process, a problem solving process that we give to children and teachers to equip them for the computer science piece. Now, we teach it separately and apart, but at Cornell Tech, we always try to incorporate computing into our computational thinking or make a computing connection at some point. But we believe that computational thinking is core to CS equity and in education. Oh, and we use the barefoot computing framework, which computational thinking framework, which you'll hear more about later.
And I'll just add on that we purposefully amplify the development of computational thinking skills early, so that if students and teachers engage with problem solving and develop their skills, they will now share a common language and understanding of computational thinking. We've actually equipped them with a language to express their thinking.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Yep. So now we're going to jump into the meat of our presentation, which is really about computational thinking as an on-ramp to computer science. What we're about to talk about is a program that we've run at Cornell Tech, and Kelly has been very involved in this program. She's been the teacher in residence embedded in the school that we'll be talking about. So what I'm going to do during this presentation is take what she's done and talk in general terms about how you might create a school-wide computational thinking initiative. And then Kelly is going to go really in depth and tell the story of this school and this program. I just want to note that this particular presentation is not research-based. This is an experience report and an in-depth case study. There will be research forthcoming. Okay, so before we get started, we'd just like you to reflect for a moment on either the school where you work or the schools that you work with. And if you could just take a moment to type your answers to these questions into the chat. Kelly, would you mind going to the next? Great. So thinking about your school or the schools you work with in general, what percentage of your students are taught computer science or computational thinking? Doesn't have to be exact. We put some possible answers. Feel free to type in. Awesome. 75 to 100%. Love that. Great. It's looking like we have a really wide range from 11 to 30% up to the 100%. That's great.
That's awesome.
Okay. What's the next one? So in a similar vein, how many teachers at your school integrate CSCT into their subjects? So the last question was how many students are reached. This is about how many teachers are incorporating CT or CS. Wow, this is great. Again, I'm seeing a really big range from 1 to 2 to 90% or more, although it looks like most are 6 or fewer.
Okay.
And final question, how many teachers are using computational tools? So that could be actual technology, or it could be thought processes to deepen learning and problem solving in their discipline. Interesting. So it looks like more teachers are at least utilizing computational tools, even if they're not incorporating CT or CS. Okay. Great. Thank you for this information. Wonderful.
So why teach computational thinking as an on-ramp to computer science? Well, we do believe that our students' access to understanding the digital world shouldn't depend on where they were born, their family's income, or whether or not their teacher has a special interest in technology and decided to attend a workshop and bring that knowledge back to their classroom. To us, CS for all means all, regardless of gender, income, ability, or frankly, interest. We definitely need to bring CS to all of our students. We're finding from our recent work that computational thinking as an on-ramp to CS implemented school-wide begins to ensure that all students are learning the thinking processes to take on complex problems. All students are engaging in the mental processes to solve problems. They are building habits of problem solving. Teachers are learning to engage students in their thinking skills, in everyday routines and classwork assignments. We are building both teacher agency, content knowledge, and pedagogy skills gradually. Imagine if every student in your school was able to use a universal language and approaches to problem solving. What if every teacher in your school committed to developing their own CT knowledge and practice this language and model this language of CT in their everyday classroom, teaching all subjects? What if you had a teacher in residence, then that would be me, and a team of leaders at the school committed to developing every teacher's CT knowledge and pedagogy? What impact will it have on student learning, teacher confidence, and sustaining a culture of computational thinkers and problem solvers? We're finding that computational thinking gives students new strategies to take on complex problems, and it provides a toolbox for them to express their thinking. It is a universal language to reflect on their thinking. And the story you'll hear about today is evidence of at least seven grades, kindergarten through grade 6 teachers. And each grade averaged 10 teachers per grade. This is one of the largest schools in District 10 in the Bronx, New York. They service almost 1,700 students. And we are seeing both students and faculty grow and practice these skills on a daily basis. So I'm not sure if I lost my colleague, Meg.
That? Okay. So I'd like for you to just pause for a moment and reflect on your own school or the schools that you work with, and think about what a full school initiative might look like, or if you already have one, thinking about what makes it work. We are going to share some of our lessons learned for how to do this type of school-wide implementation. So our first step is for the school to make a commitment to computational thinking and then to create a plan based around that commitment. So for us, there should be school-wide goals. So not just one grade, one elective, but the entire school. And then to come up with, once that commitment has been made by leadership, to come up with an implementation plan that surrounds teachers and the school community with support on all different levels. And part of this is creating a leadership team for this initiative that involves both teachers and school administration. And then spreading that commitment so that it's a community-wide commitment with accountability. And Kelly's going to talk more about what that looks like for us.
And I just want to give people a reminder that you can click on the presentation in your view to see it larger if you don't see it large right now. So the story of PS86 in the Kingsbridge section of the Bronx starts with a cohort of about 6 teachers that took part in a training from the New York City DOE called SEP Junior. It was an iterative multi-year training. And these teachers, they began to deliver CS instruction in their own classrooms. And they were exploring what they had learned from the New York City DOE workshops and implementing it in their classroom. They ran into both successes and challenges in trying to spread CS across the building. They actually led PD for their colleagues the second year and tried to inspire them to also bring CS into their classrooms. But while they were doing this, a group of inspired leaders took notice of how students were reacting and engaging in CS instruction. Then leaders took action, and they decided to commit to bringing CS and CT to their school. They became aware of a grant and applied for a 2-year grant with the Robin Hood Foundation. So PS86, as I said, is one of the largest schools in New York City. It's the largest in District 10 in the Bronx. And teachers serve close to 1,700 students, mostly from Latinx communities. It's an elementary school that starts in pre-K and goes up to grade 6. The leaders and a team of teachers applied and received a grant from the Robin Hood Foundation, who required a university partner to move forward with the project. And New York City DOE connected them to Cornell Tech, and that is how we began this relationship. By the end of our session, you will learn how the school was able to implement both CS and CT at their school and at a grand scale. In their application process, the grant team supplied their vision and goal for bringing both CS and CT to the school. I want to take a moment and read it to you. Our long-term vision is to support our students in thinking computationally, enhancing their ability to both think through and solve problems. We're looking to change the way our students think and learn by planning for instruction that requires them to personally interact and connect with curriculum, seeing and making their own connections among concepts. Our goal is to create a robust curriculum filled with challenging, real-world tasks, independent and paired student exploration, rich academic discussion, and high student expectations. It is within these tasks that students are breaking down ideas to solve tasks, looking for and recognizing patterns, creating generalizations for solving the current and similar tasks in the future, and finally, recognizing or discovering the steps or rules to solve the task. From their vision and mission and application, it was clear that this team had a plan. You see key personnel who were responsible for writing the grant. And I want to just acknowledge them. Rosanna Monaco, she was a key member of the PS80. She is a key member of the PS86 faculty. She serves many roles at the school. Her official title is K-2 Math Instructional Coach. She collaborated with Robert Hayek, who was assistant principal. With the support of their principal, Fiona, both Robert and Rosanna put forth a grant proposal. And they partnered with Cornell Tech to bring me in as their teacher in residence to coach CS and help them implement their plan and support the integration of CT and CS across the entire K-6 program.
Kelly, I also just want to acknowledge that there are teachers from the school present today as well, and just thank them for their work and role in this.
Thank you. So when I arrived at the school, I worked closely with 3 of the CS champions. Some of the earlier CS champions have moved on to other states and other positions and left the school. I work with the ELA math instructional coach and the ELA-N math instructional coaches to schedule events on the calendar and begin to build a collaborative team. This required time in August with the ELA and math coaches and the champion CS teachers. We began to plan a PD for the entire faculty that we would hold in August. And we needed to work with the staff scheduler to start planning our computer science coaching cycles so teachers can develop their content knowledge and practice.
So the next step that we're generalizing, if this is something that you would like to implement, is to have a kickoff event in the form of a school-wide professional development. So the reason for this is that sustainable change requires full participation. This means it's not just the teachers involved, but every staff member, every specials teacher, the gym teacher should be there, everybody, because we're making this part of the school culture. So again, this kickoff is part of establishing computational thinking as part of the culture in the school community. It should be an informal environment for teachers and staff to practice new computational thinking language. Building up that shared language, as Kelly has said before, is a really vital piece of this. It also gives us the chance to scaffold these brand new concepts that can be overwhelming for teachers. And of course, all of these things should be scheduled in the official school calendar. We say that a lot, but it makes a huge difference as far as buy-in.
So we began to create this experience in August for the entire faculty. Simultaneously, I was working with CS champions and a few grade level members in both grades 1 and grade 3 to develop the CS curriculum that these grades would teach during year 1. The plan during year 1 was to launch the CT school-wide initiative and educate and prepare teachers in grades 1 and 3 to teach 2 computer science per week year long. We used a collection of popular resources from New York City DOE materials, Karen Brennan's Creative Curriculum Guide, Marina Baer's Scratch Junior resources. We were well informed by the CS and San Francisco materials and lots of CS Unplugged materials. With the August team of champions and the teacher curriculum writers and math and ELA coaches, we decided to adopt the definition of computational thinking from the UK, Barefoot Computing, which highlights CT as concepts and approaches. I presented the teachers with a collection of various CT resources, and Barefoot Computing framework seemed to align best with the school's needs and their goals. For the staff, we defined CT using Barefoot's reference. CT is a problem-solving process that allows us to take a complex problem, understand what the problem is, and develop solutions that can be carried out by a human, a computer, or both. We introduce these CT concepts as mental processes and CT approaches as dispositions used in solving problems. RPD took the entire faculty through a half day in August exploring what is CT. We used some excellent resources, including Google's video, What is Computational Thinking?, which we found gave the teachers a way to connect to what CT is in their everyday lives. It was our first intro to CT, this video, and faculty truly were able to connect to what is CT, what does it look like? And they had, through reflection, they began to realize that they already are doing CT in their classroom. And now we need to determine how to amplify it or call it out and develop student problem-solving skills. We continued the PD with an investigation into each concept and approach. Faculty worked in a jigsaw style to explore, using Barefoot Computing's website, what does it really mean, decomposition? What do some of the approaches mean, tinkering? And how do I become familiar with this knowledge so that I can use it in my classroom? Following their investigations, we required each table to share out on posters. And here are just some artifacts that we created during our first PD. It was a wonderful entry point for our entire faculty. We asked them to discuss how and where they may already be using CT in their teaching and start to think about how we can develop our student skills in CT.
Great. So after you've had this kickoff event, the third step is to co-design a computational thinking experience or implementation. So if there's a coach or outside supporter, they want to plan this with a school-based team, especially teachers or coaches who work for the school, to co-design the CT experience. The reason is, so we'll present what the exact experience was at this school, but the idea is not for you to necessarily recreate that, but to find out what the school is already doing, what's already part of their building culture, and to incorporate computational thinking into that. This co-design process is also vital to being culturally relevant, because you're asking people who are members of the school community and hopefully the community that the school is in to co-design, to make sure that these activities are meaningful and relevant to students' lives and to the community at large. It's also really important that, so this is an ongoing design experience. It's not a one-time meeting. And then the design comes down from a group of teachers above, but that you're constantly reflecting and iterating, and that there's a rapid adjustment and iteration. And finally, that if there are champion CS teachers in the school already, to really leverage that and leverage their leadership and meet and plan with them as part of this process.
So after experiencing what CT is, we needed to figure out how we were going to engage students in problem solving and computational thinking in this school. How are we engaging students in computational thinking to solve problems with and without the use of a computer? And again, as Meg said, having a team reflect on these questions and how we were going to do that was essential to the success of this project. So luckily, through the grant processes, the coaches in math already had a plan, and that was Rosanna Monaco and Ursula Small. They suggested, let's infuse computational thinking into an already established classroom routine. So as a school community, the teachers had an existing monthly event where every teacher practiced a style of cooperative problem solving and inquiry using a provided math task or problem. This scheduled event for math happened 2 times per month and was practiced throughout the school in every grade. The format of the task went something like this. The teacher would read a math word problem to students. Students would then be assigned to strategic pairs, and they would work on a problem for about 15 to 20 minutes. And they were also allowed to use any manipulative they wanted in the room to help them solve that problem. At the end of 20 minutes, the teacher would carefully choose a few pairs to share how they solved or attempted to solve the problem, sometimes picking on students who were not able to actually solve the problem. Again, this event was already on the schedule. Working with the math coaches, we built out this event already on the calendar and began to infuse CT language and practices. In addition, the ELA coaches were inspired, and that would be Matt and Brooke, and they brainstormed ELA experiences that they could run 1 time per month and infuse CT language into these tasks. As for computer science, I continue to meet with grades 1 and 3 teachers to create the CS instruction. We purposely started with digital citizenship to make the transition to teaching CS quite doable. The task looks something like this. Again, we use this event to integrate the language and practices of problem solving. We added a toolbox to the bottom of each problem where students would purposefully reflect and discuss the CT skills they use to solve the problem. And Meg, are you still with us?
Keep doing that. So the next step is to prepare teachers for the computational thinking implementation once it's been designed. So in Kelly's case, this is preparing them for the tasks. But in general, you want to be really clear about defining the expectations for teachers. What does the computational thinking lesson or implementation look like? What does the exploration phase, introduction phase, what does it look like during the implementation and after? So being really clear. And then allowing teams, grade teams to practice together, letting them actually be students and participate in the CT implementation. And then from that experience, they can iterate and offer feedback to it. Finally, again, with those expectations, creating a protocol is very helpful. You'll hear Kelly talk about that in a moment, so that that's formalized and teachers can use it as a resource. And finally, to give teachers the mindset of a facilitator, facilitating an inquiry-based or inquiry-focused project, and helping them learn to ask students questions about problem solving and giving them some experience in that area of pedagogy. So Kelly's going to talk about what this looked like at 86.
So prior to our November PD, we scheduled another follow-up PD. We noticed that teachers were leaning heavily on CT approaches or dispositions. They felt quite comfortable noticing students and calling out when students were persevering, encouraging tinkering, collaborating, persevering, and debugging. The November PD was important to us so that we can amplify more of the CT concepts and less on the approaches. We needed a shift to using CT concepts that help kids use mental processes to find patterns, create algorithms, decompose, evaluate, abstract out important details, and use logical reasoning. We also needed the teachers to engage in more pre-planning for the experience. The coaches, both math and ELA, they created a teacher's guide and a protocol to be used while teachers delivered the task, defining what to do during the task, and how to create a share out that amplifies CT after the task. And finally, teachers were all given laminated toolkit for students to keep on their tables during the task. This protocol was practiced during the November PD. Teachers worked on grade level teams to run the task with colleagues, and they received feedback from the coaches as they practice. Here's just a screenshot of the guide that was created to guide teachers through a protocol for running the task. During our PD, teachers asked questions to the peers to explain how they use their CT skills to help them solve this particular problem. We encourage them to ask questions such as, what approaches are you using? What concepts are you using? Are you stuck? Why don't we decompose the problem together? So we're back to Meg. So she's so engrossed in my talk, she's fading out a bit.
Sorry. Okay, great. Step 5, once the teachers are prepared, is to actually implement the computational thinking intervention. So again, this could be anything, but it should be on the school-wide calendar. We emphasize that because that holds teachers accountable and makes it part of the school culture and an expectation for everybody, which goes into our next point. It needs to be a school-wide implementation, all grades, not a special class, not some classes left out for whatever reasons. And then for us, having an informal collaborative coaching and feedback process was extremely important for teachers' development and for teachers' confidence. And having it be informal is important because this is brand new and you don't want them to feel the pressure of evaluation. And then just empower teachers to be able to adapt and differentiate whatever the CT implementation is for the needs of their own students. So Kelly's going to describe the task implementation now.
Okay, so I have a video of a teacher at PS 86 named Kara Millage. She is a third grade teacher, and this was captured just during one of her task deliveries. It was not practice, and I love watching her deliver the task. She uses the language of CT in the intro, and she prepares kids to start using their CT skills before they start working. So I'm going to play the video. Meg, just alert me if we're having some issues with the video.
Will you get to abstract some of the information? Yeah, we're going to do it together like we do every day. Let's read first, and then if you still have questions, ask me them after, okay? The PS86 kickball tournament. Miss Emery is a physical education teacher. What's a physical education? Not quite. Doesn't teach doctors. I'll give you a hint. It's a prep you go to. Olivia? It's a gym teacher. A physical education teacher is a gym teacher. It's just a fancy word. She wants to organize a kickball tournament for the third graders in her school. What do you do after you read your problem? Abstract one. You gotta abstract important information. Randy? What's the first thing I want to pull out of my problem? All right, we're going to circle 6 equal kickball teams. Good. Next thing. Gabriella. Okay, so one of the classes has 20 students. Good. Maria? I'm going to talk about what that word means. You have it. Keep it in your brain because you're going to discuss with your partner. We know what discuss means, right? Yes. Good. All right. So now I want everyone to put your thinking cap on. Put it on. I want you to think about one way that you might need to use computational thinking today. Because this problem has a lot of pieces. There's a lot going on. And I have a feeling that some of your computational thinking is going to help you. So I want you to have that idea in your brain. Because the first thing you want to discuss with your partner is how you're going to solve.
Okay, I know got some feedback that the video, the audio was difficult to hear. To recap, Kara purposely takes time to have kids take a moment and put their computational thinking hats on before they go and work in their pair to solve the problem. She wants them to be thinking about which computational thinking skills that they will perhaps need to help them solve this problem. I apologize for the audio. So during the task, we will see students actively engaging in cooperative problem solving. This is a picture that you can capture on in any classroom on any day that we have cooperative problem solving at the school. Kids engage in collaborative problem solving. As you can see here, they are using any manipulative that they need to help them solve the problem. And these are just some additional pictures which show students engaging in cooperative problem solving. When visitors visit the school, they're kind of shocked that kids are taught how to communicate and taught how to collaborate so well. This is not an uncommon photo.
And I'm just going to jump in and draw some attention to the universal design for learning factors in this, not all of them, but just a couple. So the teachers here have offered options for executive functions. They're giving explicit instruction and tools for students to plan and have not only have language for their strategy, but to plan and develop their problem solving strategy. They provide options for comprehension by offering anything available in the room, manipulatives, the options to draw, just the idea of the collaboration itself during the problem solving, and then options for expression and communication. Students need to communicate their answers, but they're able to do that in a range of ways. They can draw, they can write, and later you'll see that they present as well.
So this is the toolbox that the coaches and teacher leaders created to be used and put on every table in every classroom at PS 86. So it's a great reference card for both teachers and students, and we can engage kids in these conversations if this is on their table. It's quite easy to bring up CT with the reference card right there. Before we finish a task, students are asked to stop writing and take a moment to reflect on which CT concepts they used throughout the task. They first discuss their thinking, and then they get ready for the class share out, where certain pairs are selected to share their thinking. So here's a quick video, and I'll check on the audio before I play it, that shows two kids reflecting, using the toolbox to reflect on their thinking.
We use a pattern because each had a slope in it. And the duration because they're putting it collaborate because we do it together.
So if the audio was low, they talked about they use creating, they use collaboration. And again, they're very comfortable using this language. And that's why I wanted to show you the video. This is a common occurrence at PS 86. So here's just an example of a fourth grade ELA task. I just wanted to show you a little bit of ELA. And I'm going to show you the share out for students presenting their solution to their classmates following participating in an ELA task. These ELA tasks are run once per month, and they emphasize the ELA skills that we would like our students to develop over the course of in elementary school. So in this particular task, students read 2 articles, and they begin to compare and contrast the 2 different experiences from the authors in the article. The theme in the article had to do with having access to clean drinking water. So now I'm going to get ready to play the video of these 2 kids.
Which concept do you think helped you the most as you were reading?
I think we used the most was.
I'm just going to pause it and restart it. Okay.
Which concept do you think helped you the most as you were reading?
I think we used the most was abstraction because we take out like stuff that wasn't important and use the important facts to like write the question.
Are you agreeing with Matthew that you're still using evaluation as you're judging, or do you think it's something else?
I would actually agree with Matthew.
What?
Well, we were making judgments. Well, we were actually making judgments about if the question was good enough, I think, and we kept on changing. And before we wrote, every time I would say, wait, we don't know yet if we're going to write this down. So we continued reading and added to right? And then we kept on finding different stuff, and we found the right one.
So this is a credit to Jen Barros's work in 4th grade. And students were clearly able to demonstrate their CT confidence and use that language to explain their thinking. And that's the power of CT as an on-ramp in this lesson today.
So the next step isn't exactly in order. It should happen throughout this entire process, and that is developing a computational thinking culture in the school. So some tips for how to do that: establish a school-based CT committee. So also expand your goals for subject area lessons. So all of this is embedded in math and ELA, and their learning objectives were expanded to include CT objectives. Also, a big piece is gathering feedback from faculty, following each task, following PD, and incorporate that as quickly as possible so that you're staying in touch with what's happening in classrooms, what teachers and students actually need, and being really responsive to that.
So at PS 86, Rosanna Monaco, who I mentioned several times, she recruited a diverse group of teachers that represented every grade and every part of the school to join a CT committee. So these teachers continue the conversation about CT at grade level meetings, during professional learning time, and the culture of CT has truly evolved. The work in the classrooms is evident on bulletin boards, it's evident in classrooms. You will see a CT poster in every single classroom. Teachers are given word walls to also hang in their room. And now, 3 times per month, teachers and students are practicing computational thinking to 2 math tasks and 1 ELA task. Teachers are always encouraged to create different access points to instruction, scaffolding lessons, and making student-based adaptations. Here's a simple example of a math reflection that was given following a math task. And here students are from the same class are achieving the same goals with different adaptations. In one of them, students are asked to explain their thinking in steps. And in another, students are asked to identify CT concepts that they use to solve the problem. And then in April 2019, we wanted to start moving our teachers from just these tasks into how do we integrate computational thinking language and expression in all of our subjects. So we ran a series of professional learning cycles with the faculty to have them engage in this discussion and review how they could possibly start to use these concepts of CT in math, ELA, science, social studies, in the art block, in PE, and in another initiative called Ruler. These are just 2 screenshots showing all the feedback that teachers were able to supply to start moving the school from just these 3 tasks to everyday instruction and everyday routines. In year 1, the grant included many pieces. Teach CS in grades 1 and 3, implement CT school-wide, introducing ELA for the first time as a task, teachers working in grade level PLCs to transform 1 unit of math into a CT lesson. And that's what we did in April. We had all teachers try to think about how can I take a math unit and influence it with CT language and CT practices. Right now, the CT work is in great shape. It's expanding into rewrite of lessons, not only for cooperative problem solving, but again, across each discipline. In the beginning of this year, the faculty CT committee engaged students in voting on new computational thinking icons that represented the concepts and approaches. They also created a vision and their own mission for CT and goals for CT at the school. As of now, CT is a school-wide goal. It's one of their top 5 goals.
So the final step is to use computational thinking and leverage it to build a CS program at the school. So to do this, look at the 5 big ideas in computing that we take from the K-12 CS education framework. And choose an idea that has a relatedness or connectedness to the CT program, to the implementation, or to the subject area you want to start in. Kelly really recommends in the early grades, the K-2, starting with algorithms and programming, computing systems, and impacts of computing. To do this, you can leverage unplugged activities, robotics, digital citizenship, and block-based programming, which is why she finds that very effective. And then this idea of leveraging teachers' comfort level with computational thinking and leveraging their this universal vocabulary that they've built to make the on-ramp to CS much more gentle. And Kelly's going to talk about that in more depth.
So in year 2, we continued the CT work for sure, beginning to figure out how we can integrate CT in disciplines. And I also shifted to work with grade 2 teachers and grade K teachers to develop their content and pedagogy of teaching CS. At the end of year 1, I work with a team from grade 2 and grade K to expose them to the units of CS that we were planning for instruction in September. We also use the CS champions and teacher leaders from grade 1 and 3 to participate in rewriting or updating curriculum for grade K and 2. I decided year 2 to push this group into unplugged first and sprinkle digital citizenship into each unit, robotics and programming. Similar to grade 1 and 3, I had coaching cycles. As an update to year 2, I began to work with grades 2 and grade K, again, on their pedagogy and content. I think I just repeated that slide. I'm sorry. Okay. The feedback we received from the grade 2 teachers and the grade K teachers is as follows. Out of 22 teachers surveyed, 19 of them felt that the CT on-ramp to CS during year 1 for them, because they were not required to teach CS in year 1, it influenced their confidence in teaching CS. It influenced their preparedness to teach CS and their comprehension of CS. This is evidence of the impact of CT exposure could have on faculty prior to asking them to teach computer science. So the path to computer science is really to offer teacher preparation, lots of it, and professional development iteratively. You need leadership involved and teachers as stakeholders. You need to create a culture change, professional learning communities and cycles that happen throughout the year. We found that the grade level CS conversations were quite impactful. So adding that to your grade level meetings at least once a month was so impactful in allowing faculty to share their experiences and share what was working and what they needed help with. And again, this is an ongoing conversation and it's not over. The school made a huge commitment to this work. They introduced the task at grade level meetings. Administrators observed the students working on task and debriefed how they can be strengthened. Teachers had computational thinking word banks and bulletin boards in and outside of classrooms. And the consistency of 2 or 3 periods of computational thinking a month made a real difference in students' fluency and understanding of these concepts and approaches. It's not unusual for us to hear students say things like, let's tinker with this. I have to debug. Can you help me decompose the problem? We need to collaborate.
One thing that our team has been working really hard on at Cornell Tech is centering equity in our coaching. And so I just wanted to bring up some areas that Kelly and I have discussed where this is happening and where it can go deeper. So one of the pedagogies we use is translanguaging, which is a bilingual education pedagogy. And the English as a new language teacher at this school is already trained in translanguaging pedagogies. And so, for example, during Scratch projects, she has students go back and forth between typing in English and their home language. And she allows them to record conversations with the Scratch recorder in their home language as well. She also provides bilingual word walls and word banks for students as they're learning these new concepts. So a way that this could be pushed deeper is to leverage that teacher's expertise and bring her forward as a leader, and to incorporate these strategies across the school into all classrooms, not just the one labeled ENL. As far as culturally relevant and sustaining education. So already we have a focus on co-designing with school staff, empowering school faculty, centering the school culture, and also creating intellectually and socially safe environments. That's one thing that's really struck me when I've seen this work. And also, it really aligns with Zaretta Hammond's Ready for Rigor framework, in that the core of this is getting students ready for rigor and independent learning. Now, this could be pushed farther in the future by working with staff to build in anti-bias and education and racial literacy components. And tasks can become even more authentic and connect to the children's life and experiences and the community experiences. And finally, we went over UDL, Universal Design for Learning, earlier on. And so really going through this is just looking at where things are differentiated and students are tiered, and that could be moved into a universal approach, and just continuing to build teachers' comfort, continuing to incorporate special ed teachers, all of that. So that's kind of a summary of where we're at with that process.
So we have a bit.ly link for you to write down. It is bit.ly/CT to CS, and that will include the resources that we used with the school and during this presentation to develop the CT on-ramp to CS. I want to just take a moment to, which I didn't highlight, was we had emerging leaders during year one. And Chris Giampetro has taken a huge leadership role in working with teachers to rewrite curriculum. And Sunny Rodriguez, she has been a key influencer with all teachers with her passion and dedication to bringing rigor and joy to her students in grade 1. So I just want to say thank you for all of their work. They actually went to Texas last summer and were presenting at the NIMSY conference, sharing their knowledge of CS and CT with a wide audience. So I want to thank them and all of the teachers at 86 who continue to go forward on this journey. So I'm assuming the bit.ly is copied down.
It's on the next few pages.
Okay.
Our next page of resources is just related to that equity work that we're doing. And these are all resources that are specific to computer science in each of those framework areas.
And now we have a little bit of time to open it up for questions and answers. And I think what we'd like to do is have you put a question in the chat, and then Meg and I will respond. We also have included our contact information. Feel free to reach out to us. And we also have our Twitter handles.
Yeah, and there's also a few questions that I wrote down from earlier during the presentation.
Okay, I guess we can leave that up, Meg, and then if you'd like, we could start to address some of the questions.
Okay, so earlier we were asked if the video links are publicly available and what the protocols were for gathering faculty feedback.
Okay, so in terms of gathering feedback, we regularly had a survey that would address what we were trying to cover in the sessions with faculty and ask them how they can be improved. We have lots of surveys that show, we don't want to waste your time. So we want to make sure that you're learning and growing, and what else do you need? So iteratively, we would always ask them, what else do they need? How could we have made this more valuable for you? and then just to contribute to the future experiences that they would have in engaging in PD with us.
And then the next question that was asked earlier was, what subjects were robotics integrated into?
Excellent. So I think I went through a slide a little bit quickly. I didn't mean to do that. What was really spectacular this year, robotics is in every, the plan is for every classroom. So in this grant serves K to 3. So we are using robotics in, this year I work with grade 2 and grade K. We were using the Bbot program, Bbot devices in grade 2. And we had a bunch of robo-mouse that we used in grade K. And I do want to just take a moment to highlight that the school had a scheduled visit from the superintendents when they do come in and evaluate school performance. And 2 teachers one from grade K and one from grade 2 were selected to showcase the CS work that they were doing in the classroom. And what was really spectacular with these 2 teachers is they took ownership of CS, and they started to come up with lessons where they can deepen learning in mathematics, ELA, and social studies. So they created experiences for their students where students, using the Bbot, where students could retell a story or map the journey of like Johnny Appleseed using a Bbot map that they helped create. We had the kindergarten teacher create a community map where students would program the RoboMouse to go to specific areas in their community. They were super creative with ELA, grabbing a baggie with words and spelling out the words that they were learning in their classroom by creating an algorithm for the Bbot to follow.
Yeah, and Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but just to clarify, in these very early grades, the robots are used as a tangible way to teach the programming and algorithm concept, as opposed to computing systems, even though it might touch on some basics of that. Is that correct?
Yes, and maybe, I'm not sure how you're talking about computing systems, but in the CSTA standards, students are able to identify input-output process. So we do teach CS in robotics, so with the angle of computing system standards that we reference from CSTA's framework.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. Okay, the next question. You've addressed a lot of the CT content and practices. You mentioned culturally responsive pedagogy and translanguaging. Did you address issues of social and teacher attitudes about CS participation? And then was there an explicit equity component in the initial rollout?
Well, I'll address the last question first, because the work that we do, both Meg and I and all of our colleagues at Cornell Tech, it's all about equity. So there's always an equity component. And we're working to empower teachers to change lessons that we co-create with them so that they can bring in culturally relevant lessons that make sense for the students that they teach. So that was really important to us. Meg, can you repeat the first question?
Yeah, it was, did you address issues of social and teacher attitudes about CS participation?
Yeah, well, you have to have a gradual plan, and we acknowledge that teaching a subject that you were not trained to in graduate school to teach is difficult. So we will definitely want to be very understanding of how it's hard to have yet another thing to teach in your classroom. But that's why the culture is important, and the culture building is important, because as we learn, we would have teachers new to teaching CS, and to get those artifacts and to get those scenarios in their classroom where students were really engaging and using even the CT language during CS lessons, it was a win, because we didn't have to tell them the kids are going to love CS. They witnessed it when they delivered the CS lessons. And there were definitely a few teachers still a little discouraged because it is difficult. You know, how am I going to teach computer science when I don't really know computer science? And what was beautiful about this culture is teachers encourage other teachers. So if a teacher was having a problem or felt like they could not do it, they were invited to come watch a class. They were actually had many lunches together to say how great it was going in one teacher's classroom, and that she would help another teacher to get CS going in their classroom. And that culture was huge. I mean, that was very impactful. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just build on that in general. So teacher cognitive load is a huge issue with the equity piece. Now, at this school, it wasn't as big of a deal because they already have this mindset, right? The teachers are already teaching with equity in mind, with culturally responsive practices. So their lift was more about the CT content. Now, if we go into a school where that's not the teacher's attitude already, or their kind of go-to pedagogy, then they have a really big lift, right? Because they're picking up brand new content that can be scary, and these new frameworks that look really complex and feel really overwhelming. Like UDL framework, Ready for Rigor, all of these frameworks can be very overwhelming. So in an ideal world, we would love to see that teachers have a strong foundation in these pedagogies coming out of school. But that's not the case. And so it's something we have to address gradually, and we can't overwhelm them with brand new vocabulary, even, let alone all at once. It's a process over time that we're still, as a team, figuring out how to execute best. Another question, Kelly, how are the teachers expected to balance the competing priorities and engaging in CTCS work with depth and fidelity?
So balance is tricky, and every elementary school, that public elementary school we know, is competing or they're competing with this pacing calendar to teach math and ELA to ensure that their students can pass the state test. And it's difficult, but you know, we share that, we definitely share the struggles with them. And at the same time, we recognize the teachers who have decided that I'm making this a priority. And in year one, we asked teachers to teach computer science twice a week. And we learned it was just too much with competing priorities, with trying to get their kids to just learn how to read and write and do math problems. So what was beautiful about this particular school is we have teachers who get it. You know, they want to prepare the students we serve for today and for their future. And they realize, with coaching from Cornell Tech and exposing them to data that we know about our field and skills that we know kids are going to need for any field, they're making it a priority to bring CS. And many of them had said, other teachers they might be making excuses, but make it a priority. Make it a priority, and it can be done. So it's really watching your schedule, planning carefully, of course, but it is a reality. It is a really difficult reality that teaching CS with all of the other priorities is difficult.
And I think this is also why we emphasize, you know, this was a commitment from leadership. This was put into the school calendar. Things like that give teachers permission to make it a priority.
Mm-hmm.
Any other?
And I just want to build on that one last question. Mm-hmm. And that's why the title of our task is called CT as an on-ramp to computer science. And it was a gradual, slow adoption of this community who already had something in practice that we were building out. So our recommendation is, like, reflect on if there's any chance that you have something like what this school had in practice, modify it to incorporate the CT into those lessons or events that your school may have.
Chris, did you want to speak about that briefly or just leave it in the chat? Okay, cool. Oh, Yolanda, are you able to put Chris on camera briefly? We'll see if we can get him in here for the close.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Great.
Yes.
Let me just, okay. So, yeah, I think just wanted to add on because I know that onboarding all of this is definitely a challenge, and there were definitely teachers at our school very reluctant to bring on yet another thing. And, you know, at the school that year, we had the ruler, which is social emotional intelligence, literacy, things that we were bringing on. So there were a lot of things that the school was like onboarding all at once. But sort of introducing CT as a way to infuse it into things we were already doing. And our school was fortunate that we had those cooperative problem solving tasks that we were doing because it allowed CT to integrate very easily into those tasks. But it really can be infused into any cooperative task that students are working on, which a lot of teachers are already engaging in. So that's like a really good entry point, and just understanding the language. And I think that was one of the first things that we did was to sort of investigate and break down that language. Because once you get over the vocabulary barrier, it's much more approachable, and teachers see how they're already doing a lot of the vocabulary already. They just have the language for it now, and they're able to share that language with the students, and it's a common form of communication. And yeah, that it's sort of just the metacognition that we see from the students after teaching CT is huge, because part of what's difficult in understanding students sometimes is you don't really know what they're thinking, and this vocabulary allows them to clearly like articulate using this common language what it is they're thinking, and to share it with their peers. And you know, it informs their peers, but it really informs the teacher too, to understand the student better and the thought processes that student takes in order to solve a problem. So I hope that answers the question, and thank you for allowing me to chime in.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Diane, did you want to add anything?
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was coming to the screen, Yolanda. Hi, everybody. Okay. I really just wanted to ask Kelly to talk a little more, as Chris just did, about the metacognitive role of this work, because yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Chris, you really addressed it well. It's equipping students with language to talk about their thinking and problem solving, and it's language that the teacher knows and all of their classmates know. What's beautiful about this is it continues to spill over into everything the child does, and we've been very fortunate to still stay engaged with PS 86 during COVID, and to have students express themselves without prompting of how they're using debugging or how they're using decomposition to truly break down different kinds of problems that we're working on during the session. So being able to really reflect and learn and listen to other classmates is how students will grow. Reflecting on their own learning from others, they will continue to grow. So we love that everybody at the school is learning to use the language and practice it, not just use it, but practice it. And we've seen it widely in our COVID sessions since COVID hit. And we're just so proud of the commitment and the faculty and the staff they have made to making this real at PS 86.
And I'll hop off in a minute, but I will just extend what Kelly said to say that we've been doing these online CT workshops at several schools. And the difference in the ability of the students at PS 86 who've had this explicit CT instruction and learning experiences to talk about the components of computing that they've learned is even in students in G&T programs, older students, it doesn't matter. That PS 86 first grader can talk about algorithms in a way that is really, it's very beautiful. So I just wanted to plug that in. And then Yolanda, let's take me off the screen. Thanks.
Sorry about that. I apologize.
I'm always happy to be with my team, but like I'm in the flannel shirt. Yeah.
All right. Just wanted to say that sometimes it will time out, but thank you everyone for coming and listening to this wonderful presentation. You guys were awesome. And we hope to see you for some more sessions.
All right. Thank you, Yolanda.
You're very welcome. Thank y'all.
Thank you, everyone. We did it.
Are you still there? I have two screens, so I don't know where to look.
I think people can hear us, so I'm going to leave.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank
I'll talk to
you.
later.